Don with your hosts, Jimmy Thompson and Donato Bucci. They're covering the most current issues in sports from the 305 to the 412 and all the way to the West Coast. You can follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at JT and the Don, or email them at jtandthedon@gmail.com. Now take it away, guys.
Give them a shot to do what?
Welcome to the next episode of JT and the Don, presented by Give Us a Shot Network. I am the Don, Donato Bucci, and remember to subscribe to us on all of the major podcast platforms, and remember to leave us a 5-star review, and also please subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network YouTube channel. Thank you to Nicole Thompson, as always, for the great introduction, as well as to our guy Mike Regina with the JT and the Don pump up music. It is our annual NFL draft preview show, and JT and I, we look forward to this all year, and we actually have a special first-time guest. But first, let me welcome in everyone's favorite JT, Jimmy Thompson. How you feeling today?
Good. Let's get to it, man. I don't really want to talk to you that much. You've been annoying me this week, so let's just get to the guest, man.
Why have I been annoying you? I thought I've been nice.
The fact that you asked the question like that,
as always,
just that lets people know how annoying you really are.
Wow, that this is coming from supposedly my best friend and co-host.
You keep saying that best friend thing. I mean, really, nobody really confirmed that.
Wow. I mean, you could confirm it right now, but I guess you don't want to.
You just showed up one day, and it's like he just never left.
I never left.
He never left.
I've kind of learned if you do that, you stick around. I don't know. All right, so let's welcome in our first-time guest to the show. He is the former founder of Surefire Scouting, and he has kindly taken his time to join us this evening for our annual NFL draft preview show, which at the end of the show also includes a mock draft, so can't wait to hear that from him. He has called in just for us, so unfortunately you won't get to see his beautiful face, but let's welcome in with a big thank you, Joe Russo. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks again for the time. We're excited to get to hear your expertise. We know you had been in the scouting, football scouting industry for a while, so we're excited to have you on. JT, let's go. Start us off. You said you're ready.
All right, cool. So I'm not reading all this stuff you wrote.
Wow.
The only thing I'm going to say is, hey, look, it's the NBA playoffs. My Heat are leading at the end of the third quarter, game 2 against the Celtics with no Jimmy Butler. Hey, I'll take it. But we all know this time of year is the NFL draft. It's the biggest, most exciting thing that's going on. So we can see as possibly as much as, 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. And that's where we're going to start our show. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks. So, big question. Who is the franchise quarterback of this group? Joe, you're the expert, so we're going to go to you first.
Well, JT, I mean, if there's 5 or 6 guys taken in the first round, and I think that's probably pretty likely, you're going to have 5 or 6 franchises that are all hoping that they've got their guy, right? Ultimately, probably 4 or 5 of these guys end up as long-term starters, in my opinion. You got to go with Caleb Williams being the franchise guy, but there's at least 4 other guys that should be viable starters in this league. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw 6 guys go in the first round at the position, which is pretty unheard of in recent times.
So you're going that one guy, you're putting money down, Caleb Williams, the franchise guy, not just starting for 4, 5, 6 years, but as that franchise guy, you going
Caleb's going to be the show, right?
He better be, right?
All right, there we go.
If you're the number one guy with this much, not only hype coming out, but I mean, he has backed it up. He's played at a high level. He's got a lot of playing time considering his age. It's one of the factors that, teams look at age and also number of starts. Caleb Williams is 22. Some of these other quarterbacks that were projected high are 23 and 24 years old. That's a huge difference when you talk about upside and future potential. And that's part of that projection process. You got two younger guys in Drake May and McCarthy, both are 21. And then you've kind of got, this is that COVID draft class as well, right, guys, where they got that extra year, sometimes 2 years of eligibility. A lot of people have talked about, Bo Nix out of Oregon being there for 40 years. The guy's 24. He's older than a lot of starting quarterbacks in the league, or at least a handful. And then you've got Michael Penix at 23 and Jaden Daniels as well. Both of those guys are 23 years old. There's quite a few guys in the league that are younger than them that have had a year or 2 or 3 under their belt at this point. So it's definitely a factor. And I think with Caleb Williams, he hasn't reached his full potential at this point. There's a lot placed on a guy when they get drafted number 1 overall. And at least half the time, those guys don't pan out. He seems to have the right kind of mental makeup to overcome that and be successful.
Yeah, I know he's taken a lot lately on kind of some of his antics and, how he's reacted to some of the losses. So it's interesting that you feel like he's got that mental makeup, which I think he does too. I think he'll be just fine in the NFL. All this other stuff that people are worried about, like off the field stuff, that doesn't concern me at all. I think the guy's a winner and he'll figure it out. But this is going to be a show, and I'm warning both of you guys. I'm warning the fans and listeners out there that we always appreciate listening every show, that I'm kind of going off the rails with a lot of these picks. All right. And a lot of these answers. So off the bat, I think the franchise QB of this group, I think is Jaden Daniels. I think could Caleb Williams be that guy? Sure. Like Joe said, he's got to be if he's going number 1 overall, but Jaden Daniels is the Heisman Trophy winner, right? He's electric. He makes plays, whether it's with his arm, his legs. I like that guy that can do both and do it really well and exciting, because he's got to also sell tickets for the fans. And depending on where you're looking at, number 2 or 3, that's the slot he's going to, especially at number 2. If he goes there, he's got to be able to sell tickets, which he'll be able to do. He's incredibly smart. I think people don't realize the pre-snap reads, how important they are, but how on point he is with those pre-snap reads. Sees the entire field, throws accurate. He throws with anticipation. And Joe, I'm sure you know this, accuracy and throwing into those windows, getting receivers open, throwing them open, such a big thing for quarterbacks. So I think it's Jaden Daniels, because I think he does each of those things better than any of the other quarterbacks, consistently better than any of the other quarterbacks in this draft, JT.
So you took all that time just to say the wrong thing. Like all that data just to do the wrong answer. It's Caleb Williams. I don't know why we do this every year. We watch this guy dominate for 3 years. Caleb Williams is the franchise quarterback. He is the QB1 until he shows us that he's not. Like, let's not overcomplicate things. But next question, let's complicate things. Who do you think is going to be the bust of this draft class at the quarterback position? Joe, I know you said you got a lot of love for all these quarterbacks, but you got to pick one. Maybe not one of these first-round guys, but a quarterback that you're like, I just don't see it working out for him in the NFL.
Well, I think the guy that stands out as lacking consistency is Drake May. Huge upside potential, super high ceiling with this guy. But last year was, quite honestly, it was a step back for him as far as his on-field performance went. His footwork is inconsistent. His accuracy is inconsistent. The other thing I look at with May is his record as a starter. He's 17-9 overall. He's had only 28 career starts, and that's quite a few less than these other guys that are all projected in that first, second round area. So he's raw. You're going to take a chance on him. The upside's there. But you could also end up with a guy who 2 to 3 years down the road ends up being Zach Wilson. That's the chance that you take with any of these guys in the first round. And
Zach
to me,
Wilson got everybody scared.
That's like
It's like Zach. Anytime you see a quarterback with raw potential, it's like, damn, is he going to turn into the next Zach Wilson? That's how you know you're a really bad prospect.
Joe, it's funny you say that name because on this show, JT uses that name all the time for exactly these.
I said that about Caleb Williams at one point. I was like, he does a lot of the same stuff that people liked about Zach Wilson. Are we sure this is going to work? Zach Wilson is like the boogeyman on this show.
He's JT's boogeyman for sure.
So Joe's going for the juggler. He says Drake May. Don, you gonna follow suit?
Yeah, I agree. I know JT couldn't wait for this question, so I'll be quick. Drake May. Part of the thing too, Joe, the only thing that I'll add is, do you believe in where the player comes from out of college? The reason why I say that is Drake May, UNC product. You look at the last two that went top 5, or I should say, first round or early in the draft. I shouldn't say first round, but Mitch Trubisky, Sam Howell. Mm-hmm. And they didn't go to the best situations. And I don't think Drake May's going to the best situation. So do you put any sort of emphasis on where they come from and if the history of that position from that college has been an issue? So, for example, quarterbacks, UNC, I just named 2. I think Drake May kind of follows suit. I think it's really going to depend on where he ends up. The situation got to be almost perfect for him. If not, I agree with you. I think he could be the bust of the class.
Drake May, wow, both of you guys.
But Joe, hold on, JT? Joe, do you believe in that? Where a player comes from in the history of that position from that college? Do NFL executives take that into consideration?
I think from a coaching and scheme standpoint, yes. If it's the same offensive coordinator, if it's the same head coach in that program, and now you've got 3-4 quarterbacks coming through that system, there is a tie-in to that. I would also say it's a case-by-case player scenario as well. The guys that you mentioned, yeah, I think Sam Howell maybe has gotten a little bit of a raw deal. And
True.
If you look at some of these players, he's actually younger than some of these quarterbacks. And you're able to pick a guy up like that for next to nothing, who's had some NFL exposure and has performed fairly well. That's where you got to really analyze the overall draft strength, not only at the quarterback position, but mid rounds, later rounds at other positions. And the other thing that factors into quarterbacks significantly, what's projected for next year? Who's the top of next year's class? When you're talking about trades and moving up and down the draft board, when you have 5 or 6 guys potentially as first round quarterbacks, there's going to be some trade volume in this first round, I would almost guarantee, just because of the quarterback situation. And next year doesn't look nearly as strong at this point. Again, it's a projection. Other guys could come out as underclassmen. People can have phenomenal years. But overall, Caleb Williams was the guy last year, right? Everybody was looking forward to drafting Caleb Williams. I mean, the Cardinals kind of put together a tank season with potentially an opportunity to draft him, and it didn't quite work out that way.
Right.
I mean, so basically what he's saying is ain't nobody tanking for Quinn Ewers, which I agree. But I think you guys are overlooking the easy answer here. The bust of the class is JJ McCarthy.
I knew it. I knew you were going to go.
Well, first of all, I can talk shit about JJ McCarthy because I picked him one year to win the Heisman and he didn't do it. So don't start with this. Oh, like you've always hated him. No, I haven't always hated him.
You're so bitter.
I love JJ McCarthy, but let's keep it real. If he goes to any of the teams in the top three specifically, or in the top 5, like he's not talented enough to carry that franchise. Look at his career numbers. Never had more than 3,000 yards passing in the season, less than 240 completions every year, less than 330 plus attempts every year, and he never had more than 22 touchdowns in a year. So you know what that tells me? He's a passenger, not the bus driver. Like imagine JJ McCarthy on the Patriots. How is he going to be any better than what they've seen from Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi? Like that's what you're expecting in the top 3, like a guy that can come in and produce and get you 8 wins with that terrible cast that's on a bad team. Like he's screaming easy bust to me. So I mean, you guys are, kind of right on Drake May. I get it, but the easy one is JJ McCarthy. Like, he shouldn't even be in this conversation, but he could go as high as number 2.
You couldn't wait all day to throw out the whole passenger to the bus driver thing. You're unbelievable.
I'm sorry. He's a passenger.
Great analysis, JT. Great analysis. Go ahead.
Whatever. All right. So we're going to do something new this year. We're going to talk about, because Brock Purdy's got everyone looking for the diamond in the rough and thinking they don't have to take a quarterback early. But which quarterback this year in this class could be like a Brock Purdy type? So what I mean by that is they're going to go like day 3. Like, what guy is going in that range that could be a steal?
I'm going to throw 2 names out at you guys, and maybe not day 3.
I can write these down because I know Don's going to steal these in Dynasty.
First guy is probably more of a day 2 guy, but Michael Pratt out of Tulane. He's got good size, about 6'3", 220. He's got really phenomenal instincts. He's a leader and a winner, and he's not elite in any one area, which is why he's projected as a mid-round guy. He's got good mobility. He's more athletic than most of the quarterbacks in this class. And the biggest thing that jumps out to me with him is, what's the most overlooked trait in a quarterback? That's a question for you guys.
Winning.
That's it, JT. Absolutely. And this guy's 21-3 at Tulane. Tulane was almost a defunct football program at one point, not that long ago. He went and turned that thing around big time. That wasn't just him. They had a really good coach there in Willie Fritz. But Tulane's football program was going to be axed entirely. That's how horrible they were historically. They were 2-10 and 21. He took over and started and went 25-3 as a team over the last 2 years at Tulane, beating Caleb Williams and USC in a bowl game, which he totally outplayed Caleb Williams in that game. Shockingly to me as well as many others. But I just see the guy as a winner, and he's got a lot of the traits that Brock Purdy actually possesses as well. Doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but just good enough. He's not going to blow you away with his 40 time, but he's going to make plays.
You just basically described Don. So wow. Don, you could be the sleeper of this draft. You still got eligibility, right? We can get you into college.
I don't think so.
Got eligibility?
I don't think so. Joe, that's a really good answer. I like. You said you had a second name. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, well, I'll give you the second one quick. It's Jordan Travis out of Florida State. I think a lot of people are aware of him.
Oh no, we can't. We're not doing this on this show. We don't say anything nice about FSU players. Cut his mic.
No, go ahead, Joe. We'll give you the backstory, but you could give your answer.
Well, I mean, everybody's aware of the leg injury, so he hasn't had the off season, hasn't been able to do much. Anticipated is just being able to start to throw right around now. No one's really talking about him, but the guy's, again, he's a winner. He's a leader, very cerebral, slippery in the pocket, doesn't have great size. He is going to be 24 years old, so there's some downside things there as well. Obviously, he's a guy that's probably not going to make an impact much at all this year, but for a team that might have a luxury of having a guy hold a clipboard for a season, he could be a very viable backup and potentially a lot more, I think, down the road as well.
So Joe, and for the fans and listeners out there that are listening maybe for the first time, JT and I, huge Miami Hurricane fans. Like I said, JT born and raised in Miami. So anything good about FSU, even if it's true, for some reason, we don't discuss it. But good first answer, Joe. Good first answer with Pratt. I'm going to go Sam Hartman. He kind of gives me those Brock Purdy vibes where there was he had early success, right? He did really well at Wake Forest, taking them to an ACC title game and losing to Pitt. And his stock is up, goes to Notre Dame. Now the expectations are high, just like I feel like with what happened a little bit with Campbell and Brock Purdy at Iowa State. And, he didn't live up to the hype at Notre Dame. And I think he kind of now is flying under that radar. But let's face it, like, the guy can play. He's athletic enough to make it in the NFL. He falls into that right situation where he can just need to be a game manager, not turn it over, because I think this is where probably his age, Joe, actually would help him if he falls into a spot like the 49ers, if he falls into, if he falls into a spot with a lot of good coaching and veteran players around him, that he can make it work. So I'm going to go Sam Hartman.
All right, I like those answers. Jordan Travis, we have to come around on that one. We'll discuss it. But the guy that I'm going to pick is a guy that I thought, if we look back 3 years ago, he would be going number one. It's Spencer Rattler. Like, we forget, this guy was the number one overall recruit, went to Oklahoma, and then got replaced by maybe the best quarterback prospect of all time in Caleb Williams. And if you go back and look at some of those games that he started at Oklahoma before he got benched, like, that team wasn't that good. I remember seeing Oklahoma receivers dropping dimes that he was throwing. So Spencer Rattler always had elite talent, great arm, just amazing ability. Like, he didn't do everything at South Carolina, but they stayed competitive. So he's probably going to get the receiver Leggett drafted because he had a quarterback that was that competent. So I think Spencer Rattler is that type of guy where it's like, we always talk about these late round guys. Like, they don't throw the best. They don't do this. They're game managers. If you put a guy with Spencer Rattler's talent in the game manager role, like, you're going to have a franchise quarterback and owe him a second contract in maybe 3 or 4 years. So I think that's the guy that's going to be the next Brock Purdy if he goes to the right situation.
We'll see. I'm kind of out on Spencer Rattler. He's got to show me something more at this point. I think
that's like you being the quarterback and then I come in and replace you. Does that mean you're not a great quarterback? It's like,
hey,
he doesn't throw it as far as JT. He doesn't run the
same. Supposedly I'm not good. So maybe I am the Spencer Rattler. I don't know. Right. Or Spencer Rattler's like me, not good. We may not know. All right, so let's play the check down game. It's the draft version of it. So this is the way it works. We will ask a question and then provide 2 possible answers. We will then pick the best answer of those 2. All right. So like multiple choice, which JT still wasn't good, but hey, JT, you got a 50-50 shot on these questions. All right. So first, Joe, the first question, who's better, Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors?
Got to go Marvin Harrison Jr.
All right. That's fair. I don't know if there's much else to say. So JT, do you agree?
It's close. I'm gonna go Malik Neighbors, man. If you look at what he did last year, first of all, I think he won Jaden Daniels the Heisman, and he actually should have won the Blitnikoff if it wasn't for that one voter. We don't know where that guy is, but I'm pretty sure Marvin Harrison Sr. has something to do with that. Like, I just think he's so explosive. You at every level, you put him with a decent quarterback and give him like 150 targets, he's gonna go nuclear. So I got him over Harrison, but it's close.
Yeah, so I told you guys I was going off the rails on this show. I'm going Malik Neighbors too.
Come on over to this side. He's such your type of receiver. Malik Neighbors is such your type of receiver.
he is. This would definitely be a guy.
I'm not shocked you're going that way.
He fit well on my fantasy teams. Listen, he has the speed, and I think what separates him from maybe almost anybody else, and even maybe Marvin Harrison Jr., is the yak ability, right? The yards after the catch. Neighbors might be the best at it in the college game or in this draft. So that's why I'm putting him over Marvin Harrison Jr., because I'd love to know, and Joe, maybe you can answer this real quick. If we flip the names to the person, right? If Marvin Harrison Jr.'s name was Malik Neighbors and Malik Neighbors' name was Marvin Harrison Jr., the son of Marvin Harrison Sr., would it be Malik Neighbors, who we're switching the name Marvin Harrison Jr., would Malik Neighbors actually be number 1 over Marvin Harrison Jr.? Is it at this point just the name thing in the pedigree?
I don't think so. I think if you flip the teams, because we're talking about Neighbors with potentially the top quarterback.
That's fair.
And another first-round receiver.
Okay, but we're still talking about Ohio State now. Let's not act like
with like a million first-round picks.
Let's not act like it's the Miami Hurricanes offense, and we can say it, which did not have a great passing team, right? Quarterbacks were hurt. Quarterbacks were hurt. We were at our 3rd-string quarterback. At one point, we were playing, I think, a true freshman. So let's not act like McCord was all that bad. Maybe he didn't live up to the hype, but I get where you're coming from there. But I like how you stuck with your guns there. You said, nope, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. Now I'm starting to question, no, maybe it's really not Malik Neighbors, but I'm sticking with Malik Neighbors
this
too.
next one's gonna be so quick.
So Joe, who's better? I think we may have answered it already, but who's better, Drake May or Jaden Daniels?
Well, right now, Jaden Daniels upside potentially it's Drake May, but a lot of things have to go his way. The team, the franchise, the offense. So you got to go with Jaden Daniels.
I like it. JT.
Look, Joe, I love you coming on the show. I appreciate it, but we're disagreeing too much here, man. Like, I love Jaden Daniels, by the way. Don knows I loved him since he was a true freshman at Arizona State. But we forget how old this guy is. This is the same dude that threw a touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk in college, who was being covered by a cornerback that's also on the 49ers right now. So he's old. And was Jaden Daniels propped up by the receivers at LSU? Because two of those guys are projected to go in the first round. So those are legit questions I have. But to me, it's Drake May. He got all the tools. 6'4", 225 plus, athletic, cannon arm. And I think he's got really good accuracy on and touch, like on the run, and when he does plays out of structure. And I think to succeed in the NFL game, like that's all the rage right now because of what Patrick Mahomes does. And the guy threw 63 touchdowns to only 16 interceptions and just 26 starts. So he's been productive. And Don says PFF is the Bible. So we're going to look at what they say about him. Since 2022, he's number one in PFF passing grade, and he's number one in big time throws in the FBS. So that tells me that he is better than Jaden Daniels. I think what you're going to see with Drake May, if he goes to the right situation and it works, this is going to be what we hoped Carson Wentz would be when we saw him take that MVP type of turn in Philly. Like, this guy going to be a cheat code if it works out. So I think he's better.
Nah, it's Jaden Daniels. It is Jaden Daniels by far. It's everything that I said.
Anthony Richardson really got you loving these type of quarterbacks again.
It's everything I said earlier. And this is the quarterback we're going to talk about 10 to 15 years from now from this draft. Yes, Caleb Williams will still be mentioned because he went number one overall. But it's Jaden Daniels that'll be the guy that we talk about out of this draft. And
are we going to be talking about him like in an RG3 way? Or are we going to be talking about him in a Peyton Manning way?
No, like in a Lamar Jackson, Peyton Manning way.
Okay.
The thing that I'll disagree with PFF, or I won't disagree, but I'll put a little asterisk on what PFF said, is that go look at the competition. No offense to the ACC, but we know what it is at this point.
Didn't the ACC have an undefeated team?
So 2 years, but we're talking defenses. We're talking awesome defenses. You go look at Tyler Van Dyke's year. The ACC defenses made him look like.
So we want to go look at the Pac-12 defenses or the Big 12 defenses and discount those quarterbacks?
No, not all of them. But if we're comparing these two guys, to say that Jaden Daniels is 24. And Joe, I know you mentioned the 24 thing, but to me, 24, 23, 22, that is not as big of a concern. You do know
Lamar Jackson is like only 25 years old, right?
That is not as big of a concern when Jaden Daniels is this good. What's it matter? You lose 2 or 3 years, but if Jaden Daniels is ready to go now,
2 or 3 years in the NFL,
what does it matter?
That's a matter of life and death.
But JT, if he's ready to go right now, he doesn't need 2 or 3 years to warm up like some of these other guys. Lamar needed a year, but Mahomes needed a year.
No, he didn't. Lamar came into the league smoking. What are you talking about?
His rookie year?
It was decent. He saved their job. He saved Harbaugh's job.
Mahomes sat out a year. Jaden Daniels doesn't need to. So he makes up one of those 2 or 3 years. And if you can still have him for 12 or 13, no one's going to be like, well, they shouldn't have drafted him 13 years ago because he was 24, or because Drake May is 22 and Drake May had this PFF score. Jaden Daniels did it against the SEC. That's all I've got to say on that. All right. More generational, Caleb Williams or Brock Bowers?
The key word for me is generational. So I got to go Brock Bowers. I think if he's utilized to maximize his abilities, He creates a total mismatch with linebackers and safeties. He can be involved in your running game. He's a different breed of tight end and really has a chance, I think, to redefine the role. He's got to be in the right situation. And if a team's going to draft him in the first round, hopefully they're going to have the foresight to utilize his talents. I mean, this guy can line up as a slot receiver, total mismatch, motion guy, short yardage, dozer, goal line situation. So while I think, Caleb Williams could be a potential Hall of Famer, Brock Bowers does have, I think, the ability to kind of redefine the role entirely.
Oh, okay. I like that answer, Joe. JT, you agree?
Damn, I was just gonna say, Joe, me and you, we gotta work on getting on the same page because we
It's
have
that
not
Ravens
been,
hat. It's that Ravens hat.
I know it's throwing everything off. I want to pick Caleb so bad. I had Caleb written down, but you just reminded me of like how generational Brock Bowers really is. Like just for the position, like what he's done in college at that position with all the talent that's been stacked on Georgia on offense, like is insane. So you're right. I think if he goes to the right situation where they're going to use him correctly, I think he's more generational. So I'm going Brock Bowers too.
Ooh, I disagree. It's going to be Caleb because of two things. Quarterbacks always win out in this question. I mean, it's just the way it is. Even if we're not sure if Caleb's going to be generational, if I had to put money on one of those two, it'd be Caleb Williams. And man, I mean, when you look at, to me, it's hard to be generational as a tight end. And I know Brock has all of those skills and abilities and traits to be generational, but there's only a few generational tight ends, and the league's been around for over 100 years. When you look at it,
how many generational? How many is a few? Like,
I'm going to go
2 or 3 or like 10 plus.
I'm going to go over them. No, it's definitely less than 10. I think it's Kellen Winslow Sr. I think it's Gronk, Tony Gonzalez, Gates, and probably Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce?
No. I'm saying as far as the whole amount. Like, it's, to me, it's really those 5. Like, I don't know who else you would throw in. Do you want to throw Ozzie Newsome in? Sure. Okay. That's
Shannon Sharp.
That's 6. Maybe Sharp is 7. But like, what else do you have? I have less than 10.
Well, that's also not fair because the tight end position hasn't been utilized like this the entire history of the NFL.
And that's fine, but generational is different too. Like some people would say Ozzie Newsome's not really generational. Some people would say that Antonio
Unitas is generational.
And some people would say that Kellen Winslow Sr. maybe isn't generational. He just happened to play on, Eric Coryell and Dan Fouts and that Chargers team. Like I'm saying that I think Winslow Sr. is generational, but what I'm saying is not everyone sees the tight end the same way. And I think that's what makes it harder. Plus, this is the other thing. The second point, injuries concern me for him. We saw it at the end of his Georgia career. And this is the thing. He's only going to take bigger hits in the NFL. Go ask Gronk. Go ask Antonio Gates. Like, the hits will only get harder, faster, and bigger in terms of the players, too, in the NFL. I don't know.
But according to you, he played in the SEC, so he's already been getting NFL hits. And he dominated, so maybe he'll be fine.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean he can sustain it for 10-plus years to be generational.
I will say the reason why I did initially pick Brock Bowers is we know there's a big difference between like doing something in college and doing it in the NFL. But I'm like, all right, he's just done too much to not be good. And I'm like, he hasn't tested. So like, I don't have any of the numbers to back it up that he's really this elite athlete, which I see it on the film. Like he's clearly dusting people, but I'm like, why won't he test? Maybe he's not healthy, but that's the only thing that's giving me pause. Cause like, what if Brock Bowers would have worked out and ran like a high 4.6 or something? We're like, I don't know. He might not be that generational because he's not a big guy per se. When we talk about like tight ends, like he ain't Kelce size. Like he's not Gronk size. He's really like a big slot receiver. So I need to know that he's really this generational athlete. He got to show me in the box score too, not just on the field.
Well, yeah, right. The film don't lie though, supposedly. So I'll give him that benefit of the doubt. So next one, more likely to draft a quarterback in round 1, Joe, the Vikings, the Broncos, or the Raiders?
It's a tough one. They could all three be drafting a guy. I think the Broncos, and I would tell you that I am 100% sold it's going to be Bo Nix. I think they're going to.
In the first round, huh?
I think they're going to look to move back and get Bo Nix. And the reason I've had that thought process for a while now, with Sean Payton, the cupboard's pretty bare. Jarrett Stidham's not your guy, and they were not active in free agency.
Joe, can you please say that again very loudly? Who is not the guy?
Stidham is not the guy.
You heard it here first. Jarrett Stidham is not the guy. So if anybody offers you any hopes of grandeur that Jarrett Stidham's going to be this franchise quarterback, they're lying. You heard it here from the professionals.
So Joe, sorry, before you finish, so everyone is in on the loop here. I've got Jarrett Stidham, picked him up off of waivers in Dynasty. Listen, I think he's going to be the next guy for the Broncos. All right. So Joe obviously didn't get my message to
he did. He's just telling you how wrong you are.
He just ignored the message. All right, sorry, Joe. Go ahead, finish your point about the Broncos going first round with a quarterback, Bo Nix. Sorry.
No, just to Sean Payton. I think he really has a prototype of a guy that he looks for. You go back to Drew Brees, and Bo Nix has a lot of those same characteristics. He's not the tallest guy, doesn't have the strongest arm, but he's a winner. He's played a lot of football. And I feel like the Broncos have kind of narrowed it in on him. Kind of where they're sitting in the draft, there's no guarantee that they're going to have a chance to draft some of these other guys as well. So that decision may be off of their plate. It's going to take a lot of draft capital to move up to even get somebody else. But I'm just convinced at this point that Bo Nix and the Broncos is going to happen.
Okay. I like it. JT?
Yeah, I do like Bo Nix to the Broncos. He checks the ball down a lot. That's Drew Brees, so Peyton will love that.
Wow.
I'm going to go with the team that I'm just going off of what I read online. They're everywhere. Any team that's not in a position to draft a quarterback, this is the team I keep seeing the most that they're going to move up to get one. It's the Vikings. Like, they've been the most linked to all these stories, and I think they make the most sense because their roster is kind of built to win now. You got Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson. Like, that's a win now trio. So I'll imagine they gotta be finding a way to move up to get one of these quarterbacks.
Well, I agree with you, JT, but I disagree with how they do it. I think if one of those three teams were going to trade up, I truly believe it would have happened already. I know a lot of things happen on the day of and at that pick because maybe certain guys fall. But I think at this point, if any of those teams in front were willing to part ways and move back, I think it would have happened already. And I think those teams in front like who is going to fall or be there when they're picking, like Arizona.
I think
the Giants.
But do you think that's because I think teams don't know what's going to happen at number 2? I think number 2 is just so wide open that you just can't.
But JT,
you don't want to overpay, and then your guy would have been there anyway.
But I don't think. I think. Again, I think to the teams in front of these three teams, I don't think what happens at 2 and 3 is really going to affect them much. I think they already like what they're going to get. And some of these teams feel like they can win now. Atlanta, right?
What if JJ McCarthy goes number 2? Everybody's going to try to trade up because now you got 2 quarterbacks that you thought would have been off the board now are available at number 3. So,
but who's to say the Vikings didn't like JJ? And that they were willing to fall. The reason why I think the Vikings get a QB in the first round, they pick in front of Denver in Las Vegas. So I think they can stay pat, and they're going to end up with the 4th or 5th best quarterback. So I think that's why they do it. And I don't know. Something tells me the Broncos are happy with Stidham, and the Raiders are happy.
They're so happy they went out and traded for Zach Wilson.
and they need a backup. They need a backup that started before.
They need a starter.
And the Raiders have Minshew and O'Connell, and it's weird that they've got 2 guys like that now have starting experience. They might be willing to roll the dice with Minshew. I mean, Minshew really is a NFL starting quarterback. I'm not saying how good he is, but he's formidable as a starting NFL quarterback. And the Raiders might be okay with that right now.
So you say.
So, all right, last one of the check down game. All right. More likely to butcher their first round pick. Now, this is an interesting one, Joe. The Commanders or the Patriots?
Total toss up on this one. It has to be.
You got to pick. That's why we brought you on the show. You got to pick.
Well, both of these picks, you got to figure it's going to be quarterback and quarterback, right? So goes back to your point. They may have these guys ranked totally different. Team picking 2 may get their guy. Team picking 3 may also get their guy. So to me, it goes back to the system. And it just, if McCarthy ends up, let's say, in New England, is he at a disadvantage because the cupboard is pretty bare in New England. So whoever the Patriots draft, I think, is going to be at a huge disadvantage versus whoever the Commanders draft. That's my way of ducking the question maybe a little bit.
Oh, we can't let him do this.
Yeah,
again.
I mean,
you get one duck because it's the first time, but we usually don't let people duck on the show. He
did answer it though. He did answer it. He said the Patriots, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he said the Patriots.
I lean the Patriots on this one for sure, just because I feel like that cupboard is so bare. It doesn't. Whoever they draft is going to struggle. It's going to take years to build that team back up.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I don't think anyone would disagree with, like you said, it's a toss-up. So, JT, what do you think?
It's hard to argue against that because the Patriots is the one place I wouldn't want to be drafted to. There's nothing there but a bunch of overpaid third stringers. But I disagree. I think it's the Commanders because they have to pick between 3 quarterbacks that aren't Caleb Williams. And somehow they're probably going to choose the guy who threw like 5 times a game over the Heisman winner or the guy that's been the quarterback 2 for the last 3 years. So it's going to be the Commanders. They're going to blow this pick.
You know, I think it's the Commanders because they're already giving me vibes. They're going to butcher it. But this is why I think they're going to butcher it, right? We know, like JT said, Caleb goes number 1. The auto pick to me should be Jaden Daniels. And the fact that they brought Daniels in and they brought him in with a group of quarterbacks to the facility already irked him. So that leads me to believe that they're already butchering this in one of 2 ways. They're already off-putting the guy that should be their next franchise QB, or they're looking outside of him to bring in draft like a Drake May. And both Joe and I said we think he could be the potential bust of the draft. Like, so I could see them taking Drake May when the auto pick should be Jaden Daniels. And this would be such a Commanders thing to do, in my opinion, to do that. Like, yes. Dan
Quinn could never do anything right as a head coach. Dan Quinn can draft Tom Brady.
No. It's not.
Why are you taking this loser in the 6th round?
No. It's not Dan Quinn. It's not any of that. It's, yes, do your due diligence, but don't include him with a group of quarterbacks.
Right now, he might be smoke showing you because it's draft week. It's because of Dan Quinn. No.
Listen, do your due diligence. Just don't bring him in with a group of quarterbacks because you want to see how he interacts.
Just pick Jaden Daniels.
At the end of the day, unless there's some sort of red flag we don't know about, the auto pick.
They just might not think he's good.
They should tell the NFL we're not going to pick within the 10 minutes because we've got our thing set on auto pick. Yeah, no, we got it set on auto pick, and our auto pick is Jaden Daniels. That's what it should be.
You really blame Dan Quinn.
No, I don't.
All right, so time for you to be quiet. We're going to let the star of the show talk. So we got a new segment called Russo's Rundown. So because he is a scouting expert, we're going to give him a few players. He's going to give us a current player or a former player that he thinks is comparable to this player and a couple words on why he thinks they compare closely to those players. So, Joe, are you ready for this?
I'm ready, guys.
All right. First guy on the list, BQB1. Caleb Williams.
Man, that's a good one, and it's tough to throw this name out, but Patrick Mahomes. And the reason is he can be a bit too freelance at times, especially in the pocket, but he's got the arm talent and the mobility, and he keeps his eyes down the field, and that's one of the traits that Mahomes excels at. Caleb Williams seems to do a lot of that.
All right, next one on the list.
Hey, that is a way to start, Joe. I'm not gonna lie. That's coming out with fireworks. I like this. Let's go. Keep it going.
Right, next one on the list. Your least favorite player, Drake May.
This is another tough one, but I'm going Justin Herbert, and I love Justin Herbert as an NFL quarterback. I was wrong about him from a draft assessment standpoint. I thought he was raw. He was inaccurate. He had all the same tools that Drake May possesses. He's got the size, the arm strength. He played in a little bit of a different system there at Oregon, played out of the shotgun almost exclusively. So there's some differences, but they're both really raw. They've got that big frame, big arm, just lacks polish. And he's got to improve the decision making. His overall mechanics need work, but the tremendous upside is there, the same as Herbert. So the team that drafts him, obviously, they're going to hope that he turns into Herbert.
Hey, the Commanders get a do-over because they should have drafted Herbert before. I like these. He's coming on fire, but I feel you on the Justin Herbert one because I was the same way. But that's what happens when Mario Cristobal is your head coach. Next one, Maserati Marvin Harrison Jr.
Man, I got to go Calvin Johnson on this, and I know you guys are probably going to disagree with me, and it's not necessarily because they're the same type of player, but both super blue chip guys with super high ceilings and a super high floor. You kind of know what you're getting right off the shelf. He's been super productive. He's got the pedigree, as you mentioned, but he wants to continually improve his game, and you've seen that year after year. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. he does everything well. And to me, there's a pretty sizable gap between he and Neighbors at 1 and 2.
Ooh, okay.
All right. So let's go with Don's generational prospect, Jaden Daniels.
Whoa. Didn't you skip one?
No, don't worry about it.
Wow. Wow. Throwing me off. All right. Sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
I got to keep him on his toes. I know he's trying to do this for research, so I got to make sure he's off his game. But Don's too sneaky.
Yeah, I think Jordan Love's a good comparison for Jaden Daniels. Not too far off when they were drafted as far as age and experience level. And Jordan Love's a guy he was on fire this past season. I mean, he proved a lot of naysayers wrong. Did have some time, obviously, to develop, but I see the upside potential there with Daniels as well. And I think that's a really close comparison for where they're at coming out of college.
I love it just because Jordan Love will be a name that haunts Don forever. So
it does not. It haunts you more.
No, it doesn't because I got paid. Next one, Malik Neighbors.
Neighbors, and this is probably too easy, but Jamar Chase, same uniform. Plays a lot like Chase with the rack skills. I think Don mentioned that earlier. Chase is tough to get down in the open field. Same thing when you put the tape on and watch Neighbors. So I think that's a real close comp.
All right, next on the list, the handoff merchant himself, J.J. McCarthy.
This is probably the toughest one for me to project. He's kind of like a poor man's Josh Allen, but poor man being the emphasis. He did play in that run.
How poor are we talking? We talking like we talking like side of the street poor, or like
developmentally. I think he's pretty close to kind of where Allen was coming out. Allen struggled a lot with consistency and accuracy at Wyoming. To your point earlier, McCarthy did hand the ball off a lot. They were a run-first team. That offensive line has 7 guys that are draftable in this draft class. Didn't have stellar receivers around him and really hasn't reached his pinnacle, obviously, at this point. But he's 21 years old. He is a good leader. Teams that met with him seem to love his attitude. You can't argue with 27-1. Again, I mentioned earlier, I think, winning percentage for the quarterback position is a lot more important than some of the other stats. And yeah, he was a handoff guy, but he handed off well.
Don's going to use that until eternity. Next one, showing the offensive lineman some love, Joe Alt.
David Bakhtiari from the Packers. Similar style of play, leverage and a technique guy. He's not a mauler, finesse guy, but he's probably going to be a starter for 10 years at left tackle forever, is able to get him off the board. So very high upside for him, but also you kind of know what you're getting. And I don't know that there's a whole lot of argument on who's the number 1 tackle in this draft.
Yeah. All right. And we saved the best for last. Mr. Generational himself, Brock Bowers.
This one is tough to project out because, again, I don't feel like there's a guy in the league right now that really compares extremely well, nor has been. The guy that I'm going to throw out is Evan Ingram from the Jaguars. And he's a good tight end. He's not an elite level tight
It don't
end.
sound generational, fellas. I'm
Hey,
just
he's
saying.
a generational
Both of
athlete.
you-
Hey, Evan
both of
Ingram
you
runs a
said
4.4. He's a generational athlete. Don't disrespect Evan
Evan
Ingram.
Ingram don't sound generational. I'm just saying he's a very, very good tight end.
Trevor Lawrence is Evan Ingram generational. That's his best receiver.
Well, go back to the generational thing. You mentioned some really good tight ends. There's probably another guy who I wouldn't put necessarily as being generational from his career body of work. But when Jeremy Shockey came into the league, he was dominant. He changed the way the position was played. He was a red zone threat. He put up massive touchdowns. He was the precursor to Gronk having the success that he had. That's the type of player I think that Brock Bowers could be, where actually teams look at the tight end position a little differently, and they're looking to bring an athlete who's maybe a hybrid between a receiver, a blocker, a running back that is wearing a tight end's uniform. So that's where I go with Brock Bowers. NFL comp today, I think Evan Ingram is as close as you can get because the Jags do use him similar.
Would you say, is he closer to Jimmy Graham or Jeremy Shockey?
Well, neither, because of the size,
Because I feel like Jimmy Graham really wasn't like a huge tight end. Like he wasn't like a Gronk from what I remember, or a Kelsey.
Well, he had a massive wingspan. That was
Right.
the thing about Jimmy Graham.
Right. But he wasn't that guy that they always like to put the hand in the dirt. I mean,
That's right.
He really was traditionally in that slot.
That's right. Yeah, and I think Bowers can do a lot of things that aren't being done now with the position. Like I said, moving him around, having him take some snaps out of the backfield, using him in motion, and really starting to see some of these teams now put the tight end in the slot. And I think that's going to be a role potentially for him to really make some hay, especially in the red zone.
Got it. Okay. I'll tell you what, great job, Joe, with Russo's rundown. I mean, those are some pretty good comps. And I'll tell you what, if those guys end up being anything like some of those comps, the teams that draft those guys will be very happy. So great job there. Your own segment. I'll tell you what, for you to have your own segment on the show means you're pretty special. So let's go to what we like to call here best of the class. All right. We're going to quickly discuss the best of the class at certain positions, and then some of our usual yearly categories of predictions. So first one, Joe, best QB in this draft.
It's got to be Caleb Williams.
Enough said. I mean, he just JT.
Caleb until the wheels fall off.
Let me tell you something. I told you the rails are coming off for me in this show.
No, they're gone.
The best QB in this draft, in my opinion, is Michael Penix. If injuries had not derailed his career, and if he didn't have injuries, I truly believe his injuries are the only reason why he's not going 1 or 2. I truly believe that. He's shown it all. He has an unbelievable arm, unbelievable throwing skills. All right. Throws maybe the tightest spiral, can throw into the tight windows. We saw him at the combine, the 40 that he can run. He showed his athleticism, and that's on 2 knees that have been, I believe, surgically repaired. So you take those injuries away, and if he had the career and seasons that he has had throughout Indiana to Washington, especially this past year, without those injuries, it would be a discussion of him or Caleb at number 1. And if he didn't go 1, Daniels and or Drake May would not be even going to Washington. It'd be Michael Penix. The injuries are the only reason he is not being considered, in the top 10. To me, in the top 2. So that's why I say it's Michael Penix.
Nobody trying to hear that. It's Caleb Williams. Go
on
to the next
Michael
one.
Penix, go do your thing. You proved me right this past year. You should have won the Heisman. All right, Joe, best running back.
I'm going to go Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. I think he's flying a bit under the radar, but this guy's fast. He's explosive. He can run you over as well, but he's got that game-breaking speed, and he's shown that he can also be a patient runner. If he gets into the right scheme, think back to the Broncos with old Mr. Shanahan and the zone blocking scheme that they used to run. He'd be a perfect fit for that type of scheme, and there's quite a few teams that employ that strategy today.
Yeah, and the thing that I've read about Jalen Wright is that he can run not only the gap in a gap scheme run block system, but like you said, that zone blocking system too. So the fact that he can do both, is pretty good. JT, who do you got?
That's a good pick. I'm going to go with Jonathan Brooks from Texas. I mean, he's got vision, speed, great contact balance, change of direction ability, and he can catch the ball. And he's 6 foot, 200 pounds plus. Like, look at it this way. Before he got injured, he obviously tore his ACL. He was the only running back in college football that was averaging at least 2 yards per team play. Like, that's insane to me. So if he didn't have that torn ACL, I think he's the only running back that gets drafted in round 1 this year. So I'm sticking with him as the best guy at the position.
Yeah, I think it's Jonathan Brooks. The injuries, I mean, he's got the size, the speed, the strength. On top of that, the agility for a guy his size, which is he's NFL ready. So I'm going to go with him. But Joe, I also think Jalen Wright's really close. He's NFL ready in terms of athleticism. And the thing that gets overlooked is that great pass. He's a great pass protector. He can be that every down, 3 down back. And I think that's what maybe can put him over the hump once they get into the NFL. But it's Jonathan Brooks going into it. So next best category, best player in it, best wide receiver.
I got to go Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's probably the highest rated receiver coming out probably since Calvin Johnson. That's kind of why I went with that comparison. I feel like he's super blue chip with not a whole lot of downside. You kind of know what you're getting right off the lot. There's still a chance he's not the first receiver drafted, which is kind of mind blowing. But there's a lot of teams out there. I feel like that you're back and forth. Neighbors, Harrison, Neighbors. But to me, he's head and shoulders the top guy at the position.
Okay, can't go wrong there, JT.
I mean, I don't want to sound like a Bastion Marv because he's elite, but it's Neighbors, man. For everything I said before, like you get this guy as a number 1 receiver on a team that has a decent coach, decent quarterback, he's gonna go crazy. Like, to me, I could be wrong. This is probably me just overreacting. He got Antonio Brown type potential to me. Like, I just can see him just being a guy that you get him the ball so many times per game. Next thing you know, he's leading the league in receptions, yards, and he gets like 7 to 9 touchdowns a year, and he's just like a lock in the Pro Bowl. So I'm going with Neighbors.
Listen, we know Neighbors is my guy, but I think
your guy now. You can't be up with our guy. You claiming him?
No, you know he's my type of receiver. He's the guy I'll draft on fantasy.
So if he's on the board at 4, it's him over Marv.
Absolutely, we know that already. Come on. So, but I'm gonna look at this best receiver when it's all said and done, and the guy that I think it's going to be is actually his teammate, Brian Thomas Jr. 6'4", he's got elite ball skills, athleticism, but the main thing about him is he produced on a limited target share. And a lot of people can say that, as Joe said earlier, how do we know how good Neighbors really is because of who he had around him? And JT keeps saying it, Jaden Daniels only won because he had Neighbors, he had Thomas, he had all these guys around him. Well, why doesn't no one talk about Brian Thomas Jr.? Well, this is why. Limited target share because Neighbors was his teammate. Only 24.2% of his routes was he targeted. All right. But he still led the nation with 17 touchdowns, 13.3 yards per target, 6th best in the country. He had the 2nd highest burn rate, better than Marvin Harrison, better than Neighbors, better than Xavier Worthy, better than all of those guys. The burn rate is, which is when a receiver wins his matchup versus a defensive back in which he's targeted. He was 2nd best at that in the whole country. That's the guy you want. The guy that is getting the ball, you know it, and burns his defensive back, because that is what is going to happen in the NFL.
I will say this to answer your question. I think the reason why people aren't talking about him is I think Quentin Johnson has scared people off those type of receivers that look like him and Brian Thomas.
The first thing I said, he has elite ball skills. One of the things about Quentin Johnson.
But I don't agree with
you.
This,
don't get it. You don't hear it. You don't listen.
Everybody thinks he's very similar to Quentin Johnson. And to your other point, burn rate. Yeah, I hope he can burn people when you're facing the number 2 or 3 best defender on the team because Neighbors is getting all the attention. But
see,
I get what you're doing.
He gets
the
that.
The rails are gone. You're swinging for the fences. Hey, look, I get it.
Hey, once again, He's getting that disrespect, but that's why he's going to end up being the best receiver in this draft. I told you last year when everyone said no, it was JSN. Clearly,
relax,
I told you.
Relax.
Okay,
we'll
okay.
get to you.
All right, good. All right, next one. Potential bust of the draft, Joe.
I'm not sold on Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. Alabama cornerbacks have not always quite lived up to the hype. They've put their fair share of guys in the league at that position that have been very successful. I'm not sold that Kool-Aid McKinstry is worth a first-round pick. Probably going to end up being a good player, but not worthy of a first-round pick. It's tough when you got 7 or 8 guys every year in your Alabama, 7 or 8 guys on the defensive side of the ball. They're all going to be NFL players. It's tough to get an accurate projection. I think the guy playing opposite of him, Terrion Arnold, is legit a top 10, top 12 guy. Just not sold on Kool-Aid being a star.
Okay, interesting. All right, you're not drinking the Kool-Aid is what you're saying. All right, JT.
All right, so easy answer is JJ McCarthy if he goes to the top 3. But we already talked about that, so I'm going to give you 3 answers in one, and it's 3 guys.
This is what he does, Joe.
No.
This is what he's got to hedge his bet. He's got to hedge his bet.
All the same excuse because I think these guys are going to go in the first or second round. Adonai Mitchell, Lad McConkey, and Xavier Leggett, all 3 receivers. Like these are potential round 1, potential round 2 guys, and you look up the stats on guys that have their profile. So these guys are less than 20% career receiver market share on their teams and less than 2 career receiving yards per team pass attempt. Guys with those numbers only have like a 10% success rate in the NFL within their first 3 years. So the odds of those guys breaking out based on what they've done in college and they're going to be drafted really, really high just says that it's probably not going to work out. So those 3 guys in particular, just because of their name value and where they're going to go, I'm picking them 3. Those are going to be my potential busts.
Wow, way to really hedge your bet. Hey, 3 guys. You're only supposed to name 1, but 3. Good. I mean, you're bound to hit it 33% rate.
How many more ways do you want me to say the guy is not going to be it?
Just because of you and you always wear these ugly hats, I really hope JJ McCarthy turns out to be a Hall of Famer at this point. I really do. I really do.
You want him to go to Baltimore and Lamar go down and JJ McCarthy's the quarterback.
No, and Lamar come over to Pittsburgh.
Lamar comes over. JJ McCarthy is the quarterback.
Lamar comes over to Pittsburgh because it doesn't look like we're going to pick up.
Y'all got enough quarterbacks already.
It looks like we're not going to pick up Justin Fields' option, so we may not have any quarterbacks after this year. All right. I'm going to go with Troy Franklin, receiver. I've been saying it since the combine. Listen, not a great route runner, in my opinion. Has some limitations. Couple that with his size. And it's not just about the size because I think Devontae Smith, I said it before, size wouldn't, his thin, his thin body going into the draft wouldn't be an issue, and it hasn't been. But I'm just not seeing him as a number 1 or 2 receiver on a team. And he could go like Troy Franklin can go like in a late first or early second position, possibly. You see him in some mocks. I don't get that. While I do wish the guy success, I just don't see it with him going that early. If he goes later, that's fine. So, next one. Sleeper of the draft, Joe.
Hey, I've kind of had my eye on this guy for a while. It's Muhammad Kamara from Colorado State. He's an edge guy, outside linebacker. Doesn't have prototypical size or height. Plays with a ton of leverage, though, and he's got really good bend coming off that edge. Plays with a lot of power. Just see this guy as maybe getting better and better. And if he's in the right scheme in that 3-4 front as an outside backer, I think he could dominate at the next level.
So, Joe, he had, if I recall correctly, he had a massive game against the Colorado Buffaloes, right?
He did.
I mean, that's really where I started to notice him. And I was like, ooh, all right, this guy has a motor. Like he's competitive. He makes plays. He's that guy possibly. So I really like that pick. JT?
I had to dig deep into the vault for this one, man. So, I'm gonna show the running back position love because everybody swears this is the worst running back class of all time. Like they're like these guys are no good. There's no good players. I'm gonna go with Kamani Vidal from Troy. Like, just look at this. He was tied for first in college football for rushes of 10 yards or more last year. second in missed tackles, first in pass blocking grade as a running back, first in yards after contact by over 200 yards, first in rushing grade, and second in PFF rushing grade. So you put that into a compact guy that's over 200 pounds with 4.4 speed. I mean, he's never coming off the field. Like, this guy is so productive. I think this is the next Ray Rice. Like, I really do. Like, a guy that's that compact, can do all those things, pass block, stay on the field. He's got to be the sleeper to beat.
You threw out a lot of stats, so I wasn't paying attention because that's not like you. What was the name again?
Oh my God, Kamani Fidel. You don't listen. That's
I don't. You threw out a lot of stats. All right, listen. Sleeper to draft. JT, do you remember who I said at the combine? Who did I love at the combine?
You love everybody.
Tanner Bordellini. All right.
I should have went with an Italian name.
I know Joe
appreciates pick one Italian that. Every year, like clockwork.
I know Joe appreciates that. Listen, he's the O lineman from Wisconsin.
That's the guy with the mullet, right?
He blew up the NFL combine. All right. He broke Jason Kelsey's record for interior lineman 3-cone drill. All right. He had a 99 athleticism score. Only him and Isaac Guarendo had that in the draft or at the combine. All right. He ranked among leaders in the pull and fold blocking drills. He's as versatile as an interior lineman as you can get, can play both guard positions and center, has done that in college. I mean, he is the guy that will be the sleeper day 2, probably more of a day 3 pick, but he can play in the NFL. And I think he can be around double-digit years. All right. The big one, Joe, this is why we brought you on. Hall of Fame pick. What's the experts say?
I'm going again, Marvin Harrison Jr. I feel like he could be a potential Hall of Fame player. And if you can get this guy at the 4th or 5th pick overall in the draft, that's a Hall of Fame pick in my mind.
All right. Well, Joe's attached his name to Marvin Harrison Jr. Hey, that's not a bad thing to do at all if you're gonna go with one guy. JT?
I'm letting you know right now, Joe, if Marvin Harrison don't work out, Don's gonna blow up your phone for the day. I'm just forewarning you. He's gonna take all his advice and apply it to everything that's gonna make him money. If Marv don't work out, you're in trouble. But I mean, you can't go wrong with that pick. I've learned that this is the best way to go with these picks. Whoever's the freakish top offensive lineman in the draft, that's going to be the Hall of Fame pick. So I got to go with my guy, Joel. He plays at a school where those linemen work out in the NFL, Notre Dame, so I'm picking him.
Hey, I've attached my name to Jaden Daniels. Basically, you can go back and listen to the show why it's Jaden Daniels, but that's my Hall of Fame pick. All right. Top 10 mock draft. We do this every year. Joe, it's a lot of fun. We'll go back and look, especially during the draft. JT and I will text on how wrong we are, but we know you'll be right. So we're going to go through the order one by one, each person here. So the first one, Joe, you are up. Number 1 on the clock, Chicago Bears. Do we all agree that it's going to be Caleb Williams? Because that's who I think it is.
It's got to be, right?
I think so. JT?
Yeah, it's Caleb.
All right. So we got that out of the way. Number 2, this is where it can get interesting. Joe, who do you have the Commanders taking?
Jaden Daniels.
All right. I agree. I'm going to speak it into existence because since our studio's in D.C. and this is the one I'm at, since JT doesn't allow me in the Orlando, Florida studio,
there's a reason
I'm
for
hoping
that.
I'm hoping it's JT Daniel or Jaden Daniels because I want to be able to go see him in person. JT, who you got at number 2?
This is where stuff gets spicy. I think it's going to be J.J. McCarthy.
You've been saying it all week. Please, come on.
So why are you so upset?
Because you read some things online, you see social media, some random person says J.J. McCarthy.
Bro, his odds have you always tell me Vegas knows. Well, his odds have risen ridiculously over the past couple weeks.
But it's still not as high as the other guys. All right, so he's got JJ. Joe and I have Jaden Daniels. All right, number 3, Joe, New England Patriots on the clock.
Got to go McCarthy with this pick. It could be Drake May, but I'm saying they go with McCarthy, Michigan quarterback. Patriots tended to work out pretty well at least one time.
Ooh, Joe, I'm going to agree. I think JJ McCarthy, I think the reason is Robert Kraft thinks he's like the next Tom Brady here, and this would be such a New England sort of pick. Let's go with the guy that wins, can hand the ball off really well, and let's go with JJ McCarthy. So I'm going to agree with you, Joe. JT, who you got?
I hope this doesn't happen, but I can see this happening, and I really don't want this for this player, but it's going to be Drake May.
Okay. All right. All right. So Jaden Daniels is falling according to JT. Okay. Interesting. Number 4 on the clock, Arizona Cardinals. Joe, who do they take?
It's got to be Marvin Harrison Jr.
All right. I'm going to agree so far. Joe and I on the same page here. Man, I must be doing something right. I'm same stuff.
Joe, I'm
as
telling you
scout.
right now, you better start
Same
switching
stuff.
it up. He gonna come after you if this don't work
Same
out.
stuff as the scout. I mean, this guy's been in war rooms. I'm liking my picks now. JT, who you got?
Yeah, I got Marv at 4 too.
All right. Number 5, the LA Chargers. Who do they take, Joe?
It's got to be Malik Neighbors. They need some weapons, especially at
Ooh.
receiver.
Interesting. Okay, JT, who do you think?
I think it's Malik Neighbors too. See, me and the scout can be on the same page
Whoa. Whoa. I'm going to go with Joe Alt. I'm going to go with JT's guy. They need to protect their franchise quarterback, and I think they're going to go Joe Alt. So that brings the New York Giants on the board at 6. Joe, they taking a QB here?
I think they're going to take Joe Alt.
Ooh, okay. All right. They're going to protect Daniel Jones. Their big investment. JT, who do the Giants take?
I think Daniel Jones is toast. I think he's going to be Jaden Daniels. If not, they're going to trade this pick to somebody who's going to take him.
Okay. That's fair. I think because Drake May has fallen at this point, I think the Giants take Drake May. I think he's too.
Please let them do that. I would love to see Drake May with Brian Daboll.
He's too valuable for them at this point for them to pass him up. So Giants take Drake May. So that brings the Tennessee Titans number 7 on the board. Joe, who do they take?
I'm going cornerback, Terry and Arnold from Alabama.
Wow. All right. JT?
I think this is where Joe Alt goes. They need to protect Will Levis as much as possible so he can overthrow people by 20 yards.
So they can overthrow your guy, Traylon Burks. I'm going to go with a difference because Joe Alt's already off the board with the Chargers in my mock draft. I'm going to go with Fuaga, the lineman from Oregon State. I think Tennessee will take him to bolster that O-line, give it some toughness, and to protect Levis. So that brings up number 8 in the Atlanta Falcons. Joe, who do they take?
I have Dallas Turner, the edge guy, going there.
Yep, I do as well. They're going to call on some defense there coming off the edge. The guy from Alabama. So JT, who do they take?
This is crazy. You know, I'm doing the same thing as the scout. I got Dallas Turner too.
All 3 of us. So number 1 and number 8, all 3 of us agree there.
We're probably all wrong.
There's going to be trades everywhere. The Bears trade out of number 1.
I'm telling you, if JJ goes 2, it's over. this whole list will blow up.
Well, you'll be right if JJ goes 2. Number 9, the Bears back on the clock.
Joe, got to get a receiver. Got to get a receiver. Roma Dunze from Washington.
Ooh, okay. All right. So they go. All right. You had Malik going to the Chargers, so they go Rome here. JT, who do they take?
I actually had Rome too at number 9 to the Bears.
Wow. I've got, because the way my draft panned out, I've got Malik Neighbors falling to 9 and going to the Chicago Bears.
If Malik Neighbors falls to number 9, Caleb Williams will be generational.
I mean, at this point, what's the difference between our draft? Because, I mean, Joe, you don't have Drake May taken yet, right?
I'm sorry, you cut out on me there. I couldn't hear.
Oh, I said, Joe, you don't have Drake. You don't have Drake May taken. So it's either Drake is still there at 9, which I know the Bears won't take 2 quarterbacks, but it's either Drake or Malik. Either way, that's amazing if one of those 2 guys falls that far. So I'm going to go with Malik. And then number 10 to round it out, the New York Jets. Joe?
Jets need some offensive linemen to protect Rodgers if he's going to stay upright this year. So I have him going with the Penn State guy, Olaf Ashanu, at that pick.
Oh, okay. All right. JT?
Hey, look, he compared the guy to Jeremy Shockey, and he's going to be back in the Meadowlands playing. It's Brock Bowers going to the Jets at number 10.
Yep. Just a different locker room. Yeah, I go Brock Bowers. I was going to go with possibly Rome here because I don't have Rome Odunze in the top 10, but I think that tight end position, a little bit too what Aaron Rodgers will want. It's a little bit too tempting to pass up Brock Bowers, so I'm going to go Brock Bowers as well. So, Joe, have your phone handy tomorrow night because when these picks don't hit that I agreed with you on, I'm going to let you know for sure.
I told you.
All right. All right. Before we leave, JT, we always got a special segment.
Yeah, so if you don't know by now, we always hold ourselves accountable on these picks. So whether they're good, they're bad, they're ugly, we're going to recap them. So to recap what we did last year, some of the best and the worst, we're going to bring in the voice of God and see what he has to say.
Are you going to introduce? Oh, there we go.
He needs no introduction. That's the man, the myth, the legend, the real diabolical hater.
Yeah, nah, that's you, dog. That's you. I saw
my team won tonight, so that's all I got to say.
Hey, listen, I'm not trying to hijack your show, but the NBA already admitted the robbery that they committed the other night.
You lost, nobody cares.
Tony Brothers or Scott Foster, whichever one of those bums was out there refereeing the game, should never pick up a whistle again, but that's neither here nor there. We're here for you. I'm here for you guys.
So, JT, what can Germ do for us?
Well, he's got the list, so go ahead and read them off. Bad, ugly, and good.
Man, so we're gonna start with the ugly. All right.
This is last year's draft preview show, right? Okay. All right.
This was last year's draft preview. These were some of the takes that you guys had.
I did really well.
Some of your predictions.
We know. Can you let the man talk? We know you did
really well.
The whole year for this.
Yeah, this is my favorite part of the show, and this is why I'm glad these predictions went the way they did, because now I get to bleep all over JT and praise Don, which is what I do in our group chat every day. So
right back at you.
JT, your worst take. Quentin Johnson, you thought he was going to be the best by a mile. It says Quentin Johnson was wide receiver by a mile. I'm guessing you meant to say he was the best wide receiver by a mile because I have no idea.
Wide receiver won by a mile.
Yeah, and I know that was false because I have no idea who Quentin Johnson is. So it's, never heard of him. Never heard of the guy. He just disappeared in obscurity. Where'd he go? Who did he play for?
CFL.
The CFL, yeah.
I don't know. Did he play? I don't know.
Yeah, he didn't play last year.
Okay, there you go. So that was by far your worst. So I'm doing you a favor. I went by your worst one, so we know it's none of the rest are as bad. But now we're going to the bad ones. And matter of fact, I don't know why this was in the bad category. I can tell you made this list. Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the draft? What is this guy doing? 5'3" Bryce Young was going to go and take the NFL by storm, according to Jimmy Thompson. You knew it was over when he stood next to Mina Kimes, who was wearing high heels, and he was still shorter than her. That was you knew that was it. So I mean, JT, you got a Bryce Young. I don't know. Has any Alabama quarterback ever been good? Has there been one?
Has any Alabama quarterback been as good as him in college?
I'm not at what. All right, I'll ask the more sensible.
Tua's been good.
All right, moving on.
You got to go back to Joe Namath, Germ, for the real answer.
Tua is not good. It's the offense. Anyway, how many playoff games has Tua got?
We're not doing this.
Okay, just checking.
How many Super Bowls does Josh Allen have?
Tua, he's closer than Tua. How many brain cells does Tua have left? All right, Jahmyr Gibbs. It says worst. I'm guessing you're saying he's the worst.
He was the worst pick at the time. I think he was going to be the worst pick if he went in the first round.
Well, obviously that was Quentin Johnson because nobody is Joe still on the phone? Joe, where are the remains of Quentin Johnson? Let me check these. Quentin Johnson, Queen. Where is he at these days? Busting tables in Detroit, wherever he's at.
Don thinks he's about to be the wide receiver one for the Chargers this year.
He's with Harbaugh, Herbert.
He can't laugh too hard.
But we'll know the name after this year. Don't worry, Jerm. We'll know the name after this year.
So listen, that Bryce Young one, you could have stopped the list there. Like we could do a whole show on how loud wrong you were on Bryce Young, even though I believe me and Don told you not to do that. We care about you, and you did it anyway. So anyway, now on to Don. Man, bud, you had a bunch of them. Let's go. CJ Stroud, the best player, not the best quarterback, the best player. And I got to say, maybe not the best player. You're not far. He's in the class picture somewhere. You're not going past 3 before you mention CJ Stroud. Okay. Bryce Young is a bust.
That was King.
Let me tell you. So and this is how you know this is true, because there's tangible evidence, right? Before that draft, the Panthers probably had a better top to bottom roster than the Texans at the time. The only change for both teams, for the most part, was adding the quarterback. And the Texans were way better than the Panthers. And the Panthers got way worse. And you can blame that on however many things you want to blame it on. But at the end of the day, teams' success and failures fall on the quarterback. So, Don, you were, 2 for 2, and like big twos. Like those are grand slam home runs you hit with those predictions. Quentin Johnson will be a bust. So, look at this guy. Quentin Johnson. I want to know where he's at. Hey, Quentin Johnson, if you're out there, man, give us a call. We want to check in.
He's going to send you a telegram from the Pro Bowl this year. Watch.
Man, I hope.
The UFL Pro Bowl, is that a thing?
Hey, Don's laughing, but he paid a pretty penny for him in Dynasty. So he
was a throwing in the trade. Think about that.
You made me give him
JT took him in the first round of our Dynasty, and then he threw him in as the throw-in guy at the end, the player to be named later.
God, he drafted to the Chargers.
Yep.
There was plenty of time to play too. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams played a combined 7 games for the Chargers. So I got to admit, and that's yearly. Like that's you can just add it to the schedule. Like they're going to miss half the season. So and he still couldn't crack the rotation. Terrible. Rashee Rice will be the best wide receiver in the draft. And look at this. This is JT. You got a soft spot for Don. He added the stats here just to prove 80 receptions, thanks. 938 yards with 7 touchdowns. Yeah, probably the best receiver in the draft. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like I know all the receivers, but I know Rashee
Jordan
Rice.
Addison was up there too, but just before the draft, like Rashee Rice was not going to be a first or second round pick at the time. So he dug deep in the vault to say this guy was going to be better than QJ, better than JSN, better than Addison. He put his stock on Rashee Rice. And clearly Rashee Rice agreed, because as soon as we said that, Rashee told all his buddies that this was true. So I thought that was his best call from last year, picking Rashee Rice out of hat.
And I think, to be fair, 2 things with Jordan Addison is that I think, especially later in the season, when the Viking season was over, it's so funny that Kirk Cousins is no good until he's hurt and the Viking season is over. But then Jordan Addison comes in, and the bones of Josh Dobbs from NASA comes in and kind of puts their season on life support. And Jordan Addison has 2 really big games, and then he's propelled. But Rashee Rice definitely has a more sustainable body of work. So I think if Kirk Cousins didn't get hurt, maybe we're having a different conversation. But at the end of the day, you can't deny what Rashee Rice did. That's it for the predictions there. But Don, I
feel like an expert.
Hey, listen,
he's come a long way from the Mason Rudolph Hall of Fame pick to this, man. Yeah, it took you all this time, but look.
But he was thinking with his heart. That's why you can't predict things for your teams. That's why I'm not hoping for Brian Johnson. That's why I'm not hoping for like a massive trade up to top 10 so we can get Rome. Like I'm just gonna wait and see what happens, man. I don't want to get my hopes up because my Bills are not my confidence meter
worthy.
or the worst Xavier Leggett or whatever the other one, the bad one is. That's who will, or even worse, at 28 we'll get a linebacker. I'm telling you, I'll turn the draft off. I won't watch the rest of it. If they say at the 28th pick the Buffalo Bills select linebacker, click, turn the TV off right then and there.
Well, Germ, hopefully that doesn't happen because I got Josh Allen in Fantasy Dynasty. I need him to have some offensive pieces. So I'm with you there. Germ, thanks for stopping by. You made me feel real good about myself tonight.
Hey,
I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
I feel really
You're
good.
Gonna be texting the shit
I want to call up ESPN like, hey, do you need a real expert?
Yeah.
Me and Joe can go do this. Joe and I can go do this on ESPN.
Yeah.
All right. Like,
Yeah, you'll be better than 1 for 31 Mel Kiper or whatever record he has. Thanks for having me. Hey, next year, Don, you just do all the predictions. JT, you just sit there in silence. All right, I'll see y'all later.
Too late for that, but we'll think about it.
Thanks, Jer. Appreciate it. Real quick before we go, Joe, we know you're still on the line there. So, Joe, again, thank you very much for your time and coming on the show. We had a lot of fun. We're going to follow these predictions by you. We hope you had as much fun, and we hope that you'd be willing to come back on the show sometime to give us your expertise again.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hopefully we got at least 2 of these predictions right.
I hope. Or at least you and I, because I always want JT to not succeed in these predictions or in any
what I mean?
or any sort of fantasy sports. So, Joe, hang on to the line real quick. To the fans and listeners out there, thank you for listening. As always, remember to subscribe to us we can be found on all of the major podcast platforms. And remember, we are presented by Give Us a Shot Network. So go on and subscribe to them on their YouTube channel. And when you subscribe to us on the podcast platforms, remember to, if you like what we do, leave us a 5-star review. And JT,
if you don't like what we do,
leave us a 5-star review. And remember to follow us on social media. Our handle, JT and the Don. We can be found on Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. So again, thank you to Joe Russo for coming on the show. And JT, enjoy the draft tomorrow night. And until the next episode, see ya.
Peace.